Building things are kind of fun. Are you the kind that likes to make up your own thing or follow the instructions? But the one thing about your ideas is that if you're not careful, your structure can be unstable. No! It happens to the best. You see, I got this Dumbledore, and I figured he needs a Hogwarts castle. But the instructions for this thing are insane. I think I could just look at the picture and figure it out. And when I finish, Dumbledore is going to look great in his tower. You know, stories are like building blocks. You might have the right elements of fiction, but if you don't have good structure, it's not going to work out so well. I guess I'll start over and use the instructions this time, but let me connect this to how good stories need good structure. We all know that every good story has to have plot, but what does that mean? Well, let's talk about plot structure. Plot is a series of events with conflict, and every good story has a problem that must be solved. We call that conflict. Without it, you get boring stories. You know, kind of like the ones you read in English. The conflict is often between a protagonist and an antagonist. That'd be like Batman finally stopping the Joker from one of his dastardly plans. But stories need good structure. That's the design or layout of your story. So what kind of structure do all stories have? Well, they all have a beginning, a middle, and an end. But this structure does not indicate that there's any conflict. It's just 3 events. So let's visually represent conflict by bumping up the middle. And well, we start getting what appears to be a mountain shape. Let's trace the outline of this mountain, and what do we get? Freytag's pyramid. Wait a second, who in the world is Freytag? Glad you asked. Gustav Freytag is a German author, and in 1863, he created what we consider a universal structure for stories. And he's been torturing students with it ever since. He believed good stories have 2 major parts, the beginning and the end, but with a climax that takes place between those 2. That leaves us with 5 other parts of his structure. We've got exposition, inciting incident, rising action, falling action, and the resolution, or denouement if you're French. Let's take a look at each of these in detail. Exposition is the beginning of your story. It's where basic story elements are introduced. We see where it's taking place, we meet our main characters, and usually there's a basic situation. But one thing that you're not going to find in the exposition is the main conflict. That's why you see the line is flat. There is no conflict. Exposition simply sets the scene and story. But remember, we've got to introduce conflict. So shortly after that exposition, we hit that mountain. And just like climbing a mountain in real life, climbing the story mountain means conflict. The inciting incident is that very moment where a force requires the protagonist to take action. Which leads us right into rising action. Each step in your story should build an action. They might meet new characters along the way. They might have a lot of conflict to face. But as the story progresses, we should see conflict escalate. Climbing a mountain is a lot of work, so our characters should go through a lot of conflict in the story. Finally, we are at the top of the mountain, and it's called the climax. But this is not a place to rest. Oh no siree. This is when the main conflict is the strongest. Let's visualize this with some characters. Our hero has made it to the climax of the story. He's gone through a lot to get here, but now he must face his enemy, the antagonist. But don't forget that during the climax, the conflict appears to be its strongest. And that's when all hope appears to be lost. Oh, ouch! Oh no, our protagonist has just fallen. Is it over? No. The climax ends with a turning point in the story. Something happens that allows our protagonist to succeed, to overcome, and wins over the conflict. Yay! Good job, dude. Also note that the turning point can create change in your character, because by the time they reach the end of the climax, they've been through a lot to overcome that problem. And this leads us into falling action. This is where all the events that followed the climax occur. We are faced with the aftermath and the consequences of the climax. Each step our character takes is a step away from conflict, which leads us to the resolution. We've made it. The end. The story is over. And there's no more conflict. Did you notice that the line is flat? So there you have it, Freytag's pyramid. But this is not the only structure a story has to follow. Oh, you heard that right, Freytag. What other structures have people come up with? Well, the hero's journey, 3 acts, Fichtean curve, save the cat, 7-point story, in media res. Yeah, don't be jealous, Freytag. Good writers will see what structure best fits the story they're trying to tell. I did it! I built Hogwarts! I decided to follow the manual this time, which made for a much sturdier structure. And now the finishing touches. And then you can sit back and marvel. Hogwarts Castle. Wait a second. Is that Mickey Mouse? This isn't Hogwarts. I did the wrong set.